Hey, welcome back. We are going to talk about some more non-chord tones. Let me see if I can spell it out again. Non-chord tones. Alright. And just a review on the non-chord tones is that they are tones that are not in your chord. Not in your chord, but still we like to keep it diatonic for now. Alright, so just as a short example, let's talk A minor 7. You're spelling for A minor 7. A, C, E, G. So some of your non-chord tones in between this. Let's say we got an A on the top there too. So your non-chord tones in between this. Maybe you got a B. Oh, let's actually do this in a different color. So you got B, C, D, E. Let's put an F sharp here. I don't like F natural. I'm going with the Dorian mode. G, and then up to your A. Right, so basically what we've done here is we've filled out a Dorian mode, or, your minor scale, however minor you like it. But we like to keep it Dorian mode, because Dorian mode is the second mode, and a lot of the minor chords that you're going to deal with are in the two position, not two position, but the two, it'll function as a two chord, a minor two. Okay, anyway. So, today we're going to be talking about retardations and suspensions, alright? So, let's just say, I'll write out this, because I know it's good to see it. Okay, so a retardation and a suspension. So, these two things are related, okay? In that what they're doing is that they're creating tension by leaving the same tone as the chord changes. So what the heck does that mean? That means that what you're doing in here is that you are what you're doing is you're taking this tone. Let's say we got a G whole note in here, right? We're taking this tone and we're leaving him over here. See, I'm going to tie them over. We're leaving that G we're still holding that G as the D7 hits, okay? So that's what both of these things are doing, is that's how they start. So they both, I guess we kind of make like a Venn diagram type of thing out of this if you want to. Let's try that, yeah. So let's do, this will be for suspension. Sus. And let's just put an R over here for retardation. Okay, so a little Venn diagram here. Okay, so both of them, they leave the same pitch. Okay, same pitch, right? And it's held over. Let's write held over. Same pitch held over. Okay, so that's what they both have in common. Now, here's the difference: is that this resolves down. This one resolves up. Okay? So your retardation is going to resolve going up, much like, imagine your leading tone. Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti. I'm holding this and then do. That is like your retardation right there. Okay? Suspension, typically, you'll hear it on maybe do, re, mi, fa, mi. That 4 to 3 resolving downwards to the 3. Alright? So typically, let's just say typically, this is going to move from a leading tone up to a tonic. This is not every case, but you'll see that quite often. And one that over here for the suspension you'll see a lot might be the fourth going to the third in a major key. Okay, so there's our little Venn diagram. But what they have in common is that they are both being held over through the measure. Okay, so let's get back to this here. So now, this G, right, this is our guide tone G, the 7th, okay? Moving over to here, we're holding it out, okay? So this is the 7th. And as we hold it out, it actually, you know, the color of that G is going to change with the chord changing underneath it, right? So you're no longer have the sound of a seventh, but you're going to have the sound of a fourth here. And this D7 contains, this fourth is a G, right? This, the major 3 in here, the third, is an F sharp, okay? And a G next to an F sharp, those are only half step away. It's going to cause a lot of tension, okay? So this guy in here, very tense, very, very tense, okay? So you got that all that tension built up in there, and what is this all about? This is all about tension and release. So we have all that tension. Now we need to release the tension. So what are we going to do? Well, I think we should use a suspension, and we should drop this down. Drop it down here to the, oh, actually, we drop it down here to this F sharp, okay? Now, the cool thing about this is that what's actually our non-chord tone here, as you know, the G used to be a chord tone, and now moving into the next measure, the G is no longer a chord tone. So I'm going to throw that in purple right there. That this is actually the non-chord tone. The tone that's holding all the tension is the non-chord tone. So you just played a non-chord tone without changing notes to what feels like a non-chord tone, because you're holding it over and it's becoming a non-chord tone as the chord underneath you changes. Alright, so this right here, this top example, this is a suspension. Suspension is up here, okay? This is suspension because it resolves downwards, okay? That looks really sloppy. Because it resolves downwards. Okay, so now let's say we got 2 beats in here. Maybe we throw in we need another 2 beats. How about we put in another G, but now like this G in here, if you remember from our last lesson, you might be able to guess what that G is. And if you guessed upper neighbor, you are correct. And what we're actually going to do here is we're going to create a little neighbor group. Let me erase this F sharp and third. What we're going to do here is we're going to create a little neighbor group. Right? Neighbor group. What happens to your neighbor group? You got to go home. You got to go home. Don't want to overstay your welcome, right? So we're moving back to that F sharp. So what we have here is our suspension moving to the third of our chord, which is a guide tone, and then we're using an upper neighbor, then a lower neighbor, and then back home to our third, right? To that F sharp. Now, what can I do here from this F sharp? Maybe I will hold it through, right? So what this is technically this is a chord tone, right? And it's staying what we would call a chord tone because it's moving to the guide tone, right? But it's acting like a non-chord tone. Why? Because we got a bunch of tension in here. Because it's the 7th. I know there's tension built into the chord, but you'll still get the same sound of the resolution as you do this. So this right here, that's got the tension, and this is your F sharp. I'll just put a little reminder accidental here for you that that's an F sharp. Oh, that's an F sharp. And what we're going to do to complete this retardation, let's just put an R there, retardation, is that you are going to jump up to, boom, tonic, because we are resolving this upwards. Okay, so these suspensions and the retardations, they are going to resolve in a half step, because if you try to resolve in a full step, it doesn't have that same effect. All right, so to use these, you have to be very cognizant of where your next chord is going. But the beautiful thing about that is that since you're holding this through, check this out, like from my A minor 7 to my over here, my A minor 7 over to my D7, I have a lot of time in here because this is a total of 5 beats, right? 5 beats that I'm holding through and I'm thinking about that, okay? So the thought process actually comes before the 5 beats, right? It comes during this first 4 beats, is that you're thinking, oh man, like this G is the fourth over here, and then I can resolve it downwards, okay? And you have time to think about that before it happens, okay? Or you can just, because we talk about how improvisation is nothing new. It's nothing new that you invented on the spot. You could just think that, oh, well, when I'm in my 2-5-1, because in jazz, I see 2-5-1s everywhere, you know, look at all these chickens. Look at all these 2-5-1s. All right, look at all these 2-5-1s. We got a 2-5-1 here, and when I'm thinking 2-5-1 and I'm on my 2 chord, maybe I'm thinking, hey, let me hit that 7th, and I know that that 7th is going to turn into the 4th, and then I'm going to be able to resolve it down by a half step. And this is the importance of thinking in scale degree, because you can transfer this to any key, right? So we just did this in G major, right? But you could take this around to any key now that you're thinking scale degree. Okay, so that's about all we got on retardations and suspensions. These are really fun. These are really fun ones. The long tones, they keep people in suspense, you know. And then when you resolve it, oh, it feels good. All right. So what's really cool about this technique is I like to use this technique towards the beginning of my solo, maybe on the first chorus if I'm taking multiple choruses, right? Because I was going to talk about this a little bit later, but I'll stick it in here right now, real quick. That when I'm going to solo, right, we think a lot about something maybe like this, like a plot diagram from your English class, right? How this is your exposition, your rising action. This is the climax. And then you got a falling action over here. I'm just gonna write falling, okay? So the whole like the long tone idea, we're thinking low intensity and stuff like that, right? So the technically like the area underneath this like grid, the area in here is how much intensity you have going, okay? There are a lot of factors that go into intensity, which we'll talk about in another video, but the suspensions and the retardations, they're really, really nice right in here, right in this exposition, because you're kind of introducing yourself. Introduce yourself with some long tones, or mix in some rests in there, right? We're going low intensity, and as you begin to continue holding things over, and then maybe you're leaning into that resolution a little bit, then we're starting to get a little more intensity into the rising action. Okay, so this in here is where you want to use your retardation and your suspension. All right, so that's all we got for this, and let's just keep going ahead with some more non-chord tones. All right.